السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. I first want to start by thanking Famzi for their invitation and thank everybody. I know that everyone here could have been somewhere else, playing with your kids or taking them out or doing something that you would love to do, hosting people or doing some activities. I believe that our coming together today for the sake of our children to enable us to raise our children as Muslims in the West is a show of commitment, and I hope that this message will go beyond this room, that our commitment to our children is endless and limitless, because this is how we bring a better next generation. You look back at the way you were raised and you see the impact of this on your current life. Those of us who wake up at Fajr are the byproduct of parents who did the effort to wake them up at Fajr time. Those of us who are finding it difficult to wake except for the work time, they know that because parents woke them up when it was school time only. So whatever we do with our children today is going to impact how they behave as adults. The purpose of these presentations first is the first presentation about the rights of children in Islam, is to give us a context. Muslim scholars and jurists have said that judging any matter depends on the perception of that matter. So the way we perceive our children influences how we deal with our children. So the purpose of the first session is to get our perceptions to be consistent with what Islam intends for us as parents. To be consistent means, how does Islam look at children and how does Islam want parents to look at children? In that regard, it will help us in getting the right context for how to understand our children. The second session will give us a glimpse, a very quick glimpse of how the environment impacts our children, because we are struggling with an adversary environment that has different values, different objectives of raising children to comply and conform to the social and political norms. So if we agree with what's out there, then we don't need to look at an alternative. But if we don't, then we have to establish what is the alternative for this environment. So understanding how the environment influences our kids is vital for parents. You send your kids to the school, even a Muslim school, is going to impact them negatively. Not because it's bad, not because teachers are bad, but because it is the nature of the beast. You send your kid somewhere, he or she is going to pick some habits that you would not agree to. So you have to set up your own limits at home. The third session will address a very important issue for us. How do we understand youth as an age group? When they turn into teenagers and everybody is puzzled, as if this is, a strange animal coming at home, we have to look at teenagers as an age group and pinpoint what characteristics do they have, what makes them tick, what makes them afraid or concerned, why do they get into seclusion at times, they don't want to deal with anybody, why aren't they willing to go out with you to your neighbors or friends and stuff like this. So we need to understand youth as an age group. Then the final session will give us some parental tips, about 30 tips, and I believe they are very important, how to deal with our youth in particular, building on the knowledge we had in the previous 3 sessions. This is our program for today. If there is any question about the sequence or the topics, this is the time to ask. Yeah, I will bring the slideshow now. But any question about the topics or the sequence, any concern that you want us to address, you can take notes, and we will try to allow time. I timed myself so that I will be under the control of the plan of the program. First of all, we have to look at children through our own look to ourselves when we were young. When we were young, many of us would remember that we were also weak and needy. We needed somebody to care for us. And as much as children become nuisance, and when they scream, when they don't, you don't know what they want, when they are just screaming for nothing, or they don't want to sleep at the time you want them to sleep, they don't want to eat what you want them to eat. These are by nature the weakness of being a child. And the child comes with that weakness because it's through you, the parent, that he starts to get some strength. Strength of knowledge, strength of will. Something extremely important that we will talk about frequently today. That their will is weak. And what is the weakness in their will? They know what is right, as much as we are also weak. We know what is right, but we do what is wrong sometimes, right? Children have a period and an allowance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be wrong for much longer time than we adults. So we have to look at those issues. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summarizes this. Allah is the one who created you from weakness, then made strength after weakness, then made weakness and aging after strength. So Allah is telling us it goes full circle. You start weak, you gain strength, and then you become an elderly parent, then you go back to weakness. You need somebody again to care for you, and so on and so forth. And as much as people quote the Quran, guiding kids and stuff to be kind to their parents, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ, and so on and so forth, we need to look at the hadith that talks to parents as to how to cultivate that kindness from young age with the children. And this is one of the least quoted hadith in that regard, is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he says, بِرُّوا آبَاءَكُمْ تَبَرُّكُمْ أَبْنَاؤُكُمْ. Be kind, courteous, and respectful to your parents, so that your kids will be also kind and respectful to you. Children come in packages. Everyone is a unique package. Every one of the children is a unique, separate package. But they are to be regarded, and this is building our context now. They are humans. We'll talk about this. Why do we emphasize the fact that they are humans? We know it doesn't take a genius to know they are humans, but we'll talk about this. They are also a trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them to us to consider them as such. We don't own children. If you have a trust, it's not yours. You say, my child, but in fact he is the creation of Allah and a gift to you. He is a trust, he is a gift, he is also a test. And we'll talk about children being a test for parents, as much as also parents are a test for the children. They come, each one of them, with their own neutral inclinations. Inclination to goodness, inclination to evil, inclination to wickedness, inclination to be straightforward. This is built in every human being. Also, they are childish. They are going to do childish stuff. So you have to open your heart and mind to accept this fact. They are also equally your children. You have to be just. You have to be fair. And you have to recognize what is fair in their mind is not necessarily what you, the adult, regard as fair. So fairness is a relative concept between adults and children. And they are also uniquely different. Every one of them is a unique human being. There is none of them is going to be like the other. So you don't measure them against each other. As far as emphasizing the fact that they are humans, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that every newborn is born with the fitrah, the inclination to be a Muslim. And that seed is implanted in the heart and the soul of the child as he gets born. As he gets created, it is planted. You read in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us that before He had created us, He has taken the seeds from the backs of our parents and challenged everyone and said, أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى. This is a total recognition. Then we ignite that seed when the child is received by starting to inculcate Islam. We'll talk about this in a minute. So every newborn comes with that fitrah to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then parents are the ones who either nurture it or reverse it or change it to something different. So in essence, the Prophet is saying it is you, nothing but you, no one but you, who can turn their kids to be Muslims good Muslims or fringe Muslims or true Muslim, whatever the title is, or Christians or Jews. You put them in an environment, you take responsibility for that environment. You put them through an education system, you take the results as they come. So the Quran also says the same thing. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. O you who believe, protect yourselves and your children or your family against what? Hellfire. If it were not in our hands, if the key were not in our hands, Allah wouldn't have instructed us and charged us to hold the key to paradise. You're holding the key to their destiny. The Quran is saying, protect them, protect yourself, which means the key is in our hands. There is a lot of misconceptions, even with us adults, thinking that going to paradise is not guaranteed. Nobody knows, nobody can guarantee. But that runs exactly against us and our faith in the promises of Allah. Allah said, if you believe, if you do righteous works, you're promised paradise. Why do we doubt it? Why do we act as if we don't trust that promise and say, Allah will decide, nobody knows? Indeed, it is by the grace of Allah, but that grace is not given randomly. Allah says, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسَعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. I will, my mercy encompasses everything, but I will designate it to those who believe, do righteous deeds, and follow the unlettered Prophet ﷺ. So there is a clear promise that we have to accept, and we have to take that responsibility, that the destiny of our children, likewise our own, is in our hands, as how much we believe and how much we turn this belief into action. So as a trust, Allah has the power to tell us what to do with our children, because He's the owner, He is the creator. So He tells us, He instructs us concerning our children, يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ, and then it goes on to amaze all of us, لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. We think when Allah says that He's advising us, admonishing us, that He will say, treat the male and the female alike in everything. That's our judgment. But because He has a system that is different than our imagination, and He has the power and the ownership of all of us, He tells us how to deal with His trust. This is a trust. So if He has the power to create, He has the power to tell us how to deal with our children. Also, the Prophet ﷺ was once talking with his companions, and he told them that whosoever has 3 daughters and he cares for them and raises them as Muslims until they get married, they will act like a protecting fence between the parent and hellfire. So a smart Muslim woman standing by said, she only had 2. So she said, how about 2, O Prophet? And the Prophet said, and 2, وَاثْنَتَيْنِ. Then another one said, she only had 1. She said, how about 1? He said, even 1. Why does he emphasize daughters? Why didn't he say if you have a child? Because daughters, the mothers, are given a very special responsibility. That is, they are more patient, more compassionate, more loving, more emotionally engaged. And that's why they are entrusted with the biggest responsibility on earth, to raise men and women under their care. So mothers are to be protected, and that's why there's a lot of care given in Islam as a system to care for the daughters, to care for the mothers, and so on and so forth. And that's why, by the way, it is in Islam the only system on earth that gives the mother the right not to seek to earn their own living. You are a mother, you're provided for. You don't have to seek your living. You don't have to work. Why? You have to care for a child or 2 or more. Until they get out of the home, your full-time job, the best job you can do for humanity is to give full attention, full-time job. If any of you are mothers here, you know what the word full-time job means. You know, when you get a new baby and the night turns day and the day turns night sometimes, if you have any night, and it's more than a full-time job. So Islam says mothers are always to be provided for no matter what. Even if the husband is very poor, the society should pitch in to help the mother stay home with the kids. Kids as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Quran says, Allahu alladhi ja'ala lakum min anfusikum azwaja وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدَةً وَرَزَقَكُم مِّنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. literal concept here is that it is Allah who gives you whatever He gives you. Allah gives you a spouse, gives you children, He provides for you. This is the package of the fadl that Allah provides, the gift and the bounties that Allah provides for all of us. Which means what? That kids are being given. It's a gift from Allah. Also, you hear in the next verse also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us that يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورَ أَوْ يُزَوِّجُهُمْ ذُكْرَانًا وَإِنَاثًا وَيَجْعَلُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ عَقِيمًا. It is Allah's decision, all of it. He gives you a boy or a girl or a mix thereof, or He may make some infertile altogether, they beget no children. Or the other option is He makes somebody infertile for 10, 15 years and then they can beget children. So it's all in the hands of Allah. It's a gift, literal gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you look at your child as a human being, you will not handle him as you handle a seed. When you know that your child is not owned by you, you know that it's a trust, you keep, you protect, you nurture, you develop. When you know that your child is a gift from whom? From Allah, you embrace that child, you give him compassion, love and care, much more than anything else. And instead of looking at children as, undesirable evil, or kids are nuisance and they are always this, I have no patience, I have no spirit, this is too much for me because my husband doesn't help, he's not. No, if you embrace a child, your mission will become easier and Allah will help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help. So as a gift, we look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide that support needed. But also children are a test, like everything else in life. The entire life, we are here to be tested. We always like to quote that we are here to worship Allah, but Allah also reminded us in Surah Tabarak that we are also here to be tested. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, to test you. And what is the way to test? The Quran mentions several ways. You can be tested by being wealthy or poor, sick or healthy, or a neighbor to a healthy person or a sick person when you have the opposite situation. You can be tested by this also. You can be tested by having children or not having children, by having only boys or only girls, or a mix thereof, or 1 or 2, or 5 or 10. You are going to be tested one way or the other. Your wealth and children are but a test. It's a matter of looking at this, which means what? You have to be cautious. You have to be cautious that you don't take your kids for granted. I'm raising them, they are my kids. You have to be cautious. Indeed, some of your wealth and your children are a test. Beware of it. إِنَّ مِنْ أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَوْلَادِكُمْ عَدُوٌّ فَاحْذَرُوا. You have to be careful that some of your, like the child of Noah, he turned against his dad, right? Some of the spouses, like the wife of Lut, the wife of Noah, they also turned to be a test for their husbands. So this is one major way of being tested within the family and within our own small connections. Also kids and every human being, they come with their own neutral inclinations. The Quran says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, give it its natural essence, and then فَأَلْهَمَهَا, inspired it with its wickedness and righteousness, all embodied in the creation of the human being. So you can call on to the good nature of the child and inspire that and grow it and nurture it, and you can call on the wicked nature of the child. And most of the children, when cornered, they don't come righteous. They come with that bad side. So you have to be careful. How do you deal with your kids? We're always badgering children. You have to do this, you didn't do this. In fact, one of the most prevalent flaws in raising our children is that we do not talk with our children enough. And when we do, it is always almost in the shade of a crisis. He has to do something good, very excellent, or something extremely awful to get you to talk to him or her. Why? Because you don't have time. And we're not really raising children. Children grow on their own, right? They grow on their own. You provide food like chicken. You provide them with something, they grow, right? You give them clothes, they are not catching cold or something like this. But then if you want to raise children, you have to ask, when do we do that? What activities do I do to raise my children as Muslims now? Is it by just calling them to pray? This is an assignment. They get it behind their back, it's finished, right? Dad, I prayed. Dad, I memorized 10 verses. Dad, I finished Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And then dad is happy. But is this what raising a child is about? This is something that we'll have to talk about a lot here today. So this verse also tells us that it is the parents who take responsibility of nurturing the good nature in the child. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. How do I purify? Tazkiyah. What is tazkiyah? How do you do the tazkiyah process with the child? The child is, I can show you something. If you get a new piece of white cloth that you buy, and then you wear it, let us say it is the prayer cloth or the jilbab that you wear, right? Then you use it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then you look at it, it's not as white as it was. What happens? It picks stuff from the environment. How do you clean it? Right? You just don't dust it, right? Put it through the washing machine, the dryer, you put cleanser, right? So we have to know, as much as we spend time cleansing their clothes, their soul has to be cleansed. Their hearts have to be cleansed. As much as we feed the body, we have to also feed the mind and feed the soul. These are the essence of what a human being is. You know, what makes us humans really is the soul. Because the body comes from earth and it goes to earth, it vanishes. But what stays to be the central element of us being human is what? It is the soul. And the soul comes from where? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to nurture the soul. And we can talk about this also as we move forward. So we have to focus on nurturing, purifying, inculcating values at young age with our children. By the way, you don't need to write anything on the screen. You have the handout. If you don't, can give you electronic copy of the whole thing. But you can write your own notes of whatever you hear. Also, children are bound to be childish. So you have to be open-minded enough to recognize and distinguish and sort their behavior. What is typically acceptable from a child, and you overlook this. And what is unacceptable, then you pay attention to it and fix it. But giving everything one and the same attention, one and the same direction, confuses you as a parent, but much worse, it confuses the child. Because he wouldn't know what is serious for you. What is your priority then? You know, kids are, for example, laughing and playing together. It's childish, but they will do it. They will kick each other, they will push each other, they will snatch things from each other. That's childish, right? But is it acceptable as a habit? No, it is not. So you address it in that context. It is, yes, childish, but it is unacceptable to say as a habit in the long run. So you address it in that context, right? But when it turns, for example, that you see one of your children, you know, holding a match and trying to fire something, that is not really child play. This is something serious. And he has to know that this is much more serious than picking the toy from his brother or snatching it from his hands. These are two different things, okay? So you have to be able to distinguish what is child and what is not. We know the story of the Prophet ﷺ when he was praying and one of his grandchildren, you know, climbed his back and he stayed in prostration for a long time. So they asked him, why did you take long to come up from prostration? And he said, what? That's what he said. He said, one of my grandkids climbed my back and I didn't want to dislodge him before he's finished. Come on. If the back of the Prophet is good for his grandchildren, why aren't our backs good for our own children? Why aren't we patient? You see your child coming and he disturbs you a little bit in the prayer. Why do you push him hard? Why don't you embrace him and grab him by the hand, let him or her stand next to you? Why don't we exercise some patience with our children? It's because our perception of children is that we have boundaries and they have boundaries. The Prophet is telling us, no, 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 your back is good for your child. And one day, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq entered, and one of the kids were riding, in fact, two of them were riding on the back of the Prophet, and he was walking on his hands and knees when they took him for a ride. And Abu Bakr looked at them and said, do you know what? Ni'ma no, he said الأول قال عليه هو على الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم الجمل جملكما. The best of camels anybody could ride is the camel that you're riding, referring to the Prophet in a funny way. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said وَلَنِعْمَ الْفَارِسَانِ أَنْتُمَا, and you are the best of horseback riders. This is a way that gives us a fresh look at what children and parents ought to be doing and ought to be like in their relationship. And by the way, that talks about the back of men much more than the back of women. And I want to make sure that our brothers' backs are really solid enough to carry some of this responsibility. Because everything I hear from our sisters is the fathers are not available. And this is serious. It damages your ability to build relationship with your child. It damages your ability to transform the life of the child to become an adult in your image, if you will. And it damages your ability to connect with the child as he grows older to become your friend, your brother, your counselor, your advisor, and your right-hand man as they grow older. Okay, child they are. Again, equally your children. The Prophet ﷺ says, fear Allah and be fair to all of your children. اتقوا الله وَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ أَبْنَائِكُمْ. Some of us think that to be fair means I give everybody one and the same thing. Yes, that is true, but only in basic essentials. You have to give everybody the same. So you go out to buy the Eid clothes, everybody has to get something complementary or comparable to each other. But when someone excels in the school or memorizes a chapter in the Quran and the other does not, you don't give everybody the same thing. You have to reward those who do better so that others can be encouraged. Likewise, when one of them does something bad, you don't go around everybody else to punish the rest of the gang, right? You have to distinguish who's doing good, who's not. So in punishment and reward, you have to be specific, okay? But in basic necessities, food, education, clothing, basic gifts that comes on occasions, you have to be fair to give everybody almost the same. And I'm throwing here a picture of a birthday party just to tell you that when you celebrate something for someone, you also have to do the same for everybody. That is not to say that I'm supporting birthday parties in a way, but just to give you the occasion. If you reward somebody for excelling academically, everyone who excels ought to be rewarded. And if anyone else doesn't excel, you reward them relatively for improvement so that everybody gets something for the effort they put forth. Okay. But being equally your children doesn't necessarily mean that they are all the same. They continue to be differently unique. Every one of them comes with their own emotions, temperaments, and what they like, what they don't, what works, what doesn't. Some of them work with temptation, some work with pressure, some work by organization and scheduling, some work by reward and punishment, some work by conditioning. So you have to figure out a way what works with every child that you have. Boys are different than girls, younger are different than old, and so on and so forth. You know how Prophet Yaqub was talking to his son Yusuf, telling him, don't you tell your brothers about your dream, lest envy kicks in and the shaitan turns them against you, and they will plot and plan things against you. That is a good recognition of a parent who knows that some of the children are not as decent as they should be. So he takes one on the side and says, be careful. They are your brothers, but be careful. Don't tell them everything that you have. So one has to recognize if one of the children, for example, got caught, he went to high school or college and he got caught in a gang, right? You have to protect the rest of the children. Okay? You have to protect the rest. You don't say, but he is their brother or she is their sister. You have to protect the ones that are not yet influenced negatively by whatever is out there in the society. Also, Nuh, a story that many Muslims abuse, in fact, by quoting the story, many say, if Nuh couldn't get his son to be guided, how good am I more than a prophet? But listen to the story of Nuh, you will find something very amazing. We know that Nuh went making da'wah with his people for how many years? 950, almost 1,000 years. So if his son was the youngest baby, I would imagine that by the time they were riding the ark, that guy was about 700 years old, right? So if this baby has been given the advice for 700 years, Noah never gave up on him. And this is a lesson that we have to learn. Noah never gave up on his son until the last minute, and he was telling him, ride with us, come. And he resisted. Noah never cursed him, he never told him, get out of my life, until Allah told him, he is not of your family. إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ, meaning the family of the believers. He is not of your family. But Allah never told him this from the beginning. Realize this. He didn't tell him, do you know what, Nuh? He's never going to believe, so let him now. Leave him and focus on something different. So we should never give up on a child so long we are breathing, so long as he or she is breathing. We keep inviting them, we keep calling them our children, we keep caring for them. Okay, now, what are then the rights of children on their parents? This is the topic, right? The first thing is to have fit parents. What is a fit parent Islamically? How is a fit parent defined? If you're given a choice between something good and something half good, what is the choice? If they are all the same price, you pick what is good, right? You pick what's excellent. So if you have a choice between a Muslim wife and a Christian wife, where do you go? The Prophet says, if you have two Muslim wives, pick the one that's best in religion. So it goes without saying that you have a choice between a Muslim and a Muslim, the choice is clear. So the parent, the most fit parent is one who is Muslim, caring, selfless, because there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to put forth. There's a lot of care required of parents to offer to children. There is a lot of tolerance required of parents. There is a lot of education that parents have to be able to learn and willing to learn, to sit down, read books, watch videos, listen to audio tapes, visit places, attend workshops, and share information with others and listen to others. To be balanced, to be disciplined. You're the one who's going to establish discipline in the life of your children. So if you tell them you have to wake up at Fajr and you don't, then what happens? You tell them, read the Quran, memorize the Quran. Oh daddy, how much of the Quran do you memorize? It's like this joke that says, a man, called his son in the 5th grade, and he said, son, listen to me. When Eisenhower was your age, 5th grader, he used to be on top of his class, straight A all the time, the top in sport, the top in this, the top in that. And the young man looked up and he said, Dad, when he was your age, he was the president of the United States. So kids also have their own parallels. They have their own measures. So don't be so confident of yourself when you keep pushing them when you're not pushing yourself. They want to see you providing the model. I am pushing myself to do this. I am pushing everybody, not only you, but I'm pushing myself starting with this. So discipline, consistency, love, mercy, patience, justice, cooperation, organization, commitment, sociability. All of these are, I'm listing a lot of things. Maybe everybody will say, oh, come on, there is nobody who has all of this. Yes, there is nobody who has everything. But this is the model that we've seen, and I picked those from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So there is an example you strive to reach, no matter how far it may look. One day you will get there. Ask yourself every time compassion is needed. Am I exercising enough compassion? Patience is needed. Am I patient enough? Cooperation between you and your spouse. You ask, how much cooperation do I provide? Because without measuring, without having a target, you will never reach anywhere. So this is a good target to look forward for. Then the Prophet ﷺ gives us also the guidance to be picky. You know, when you pick a spouse, I know that most of you, if not all of you, are married, but those who are not yet, you want to pick a spouse, look to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him, what kind of wife, what kind of husband should I look for? And he gives you guidance. He says to the parents, look for a spouse that is fit for your daughter, because فَإِنَّ الْعِرْقَ دَسَّاسٌ. Choose for your offsprings, because parents' habits turn into their children. And you are not picking only a wife, you're also picking with her uncles, granddads, nephews, nieces for your children. So you're not just picking a companion, a friend, or somebody. If it doesn't work, then we'll do this. No. You're also picking a family for your children. Choose for your offspring. Also, talking about the wives, the Prophet ﷺ guides and says, if you get a person with whom you are pleased with their religiosity, the religion, and their manners. Most of us are focused on religion. If somebody has a beard and a jilbab, then this is a good man. But the Prophet is saying religion and manners, because some people are very good with Allah. What could they do to harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Nothing. So they end up harming people. They end up with rough manners with humans, but very kind, very nice with Allah. How could they be otherwise anyway? So they read the Quran, they pray at the mosque, they do this, they attend lectures, but when it comes to manners with their wives and their children, they are even sometimes not even available. And something telling about this is, the Prophet is not saying pick somebody who is very religious or pick somebody who is not religious. The Prophet is saying you ought to be satisfied with their religion. Why? This is very wise. Why? Because not all of us are of the same level of commitment and understanding. So pick someone that is really parallel to your life, little bit better than you, so that you can improve and try to jump to join him or her, but pick somebody close. So you're not, for example, starting to commit to Islam today, and you want somebody, for example, a wife that has a niqab, that memorizes the Quran, that does this, that does, and then you end up being very much way behind, and she will be pulling your hair, trying to pick you to climb the next step in the stairs. So you need to pick somebody who's acceptable to you and relatively close to you, but little bit better. Then also the same thing. How much time? 5 minutes. Okay, I will run. So catch up with me now. Are you able to read this? So I can run quicker than what I... Okay. Okay. So also a woman is not to be married for her beauty or her wealth. Likewise, a man ought not to be married for his wealth or looks or anything else, but for religion. Also, don't marry women for their beauty. Their beauty may lead them to indulgence. Don't marry them for their money. Their money may turn them into tyrants. Likewise, a man can also be turned into a tyrant and controlling freak if he has wealth and control, power, and all of this. Marry them instead, the Prophet says, for their religion. Indeed, a black, deaf, but religious woman is better. Come on, why is he mentioning black? Why is the Prophet mentioning black? Is this... No, because he's addressing a society that calls the black people slaves and servants. Until today, many of the Arab countries would call a black person abd, which means servant, when the man or the woman is not a servant. Okay? But this is inheritance. So the Prophet is turning the society around, saying, you know what? Those guys that you call abd, they are Abdullah. And when they are Abdullah, they are better than other ones and than you. So the Prophet is turning things around, trying to correct the concepts. Also, in fit parenting, the best of pleasure in this life, the Prophet ﷺ says, is what? A righteous wife. Likewise, a righteous husband. Because this is a person that you spend the rest of your life with. So if the person is righteous, he or she will always incorporate Quran and the Sunnah as reference for their behavior and their conduct. Marriage is described in the hadith as what? Captivity, you know. And by the way, for those of you who know Arabic a little bit, the word in Arabic is usra. It comes from the root word asara. And to be a captive of somebody can be very negative and very positive. Can be very negative when you are POW, right? Prisoner of war. You're captured in the battlefield, okay? Enemy combatant. Then, but if you are captured by somebody's generosity, courtesy, support, and care, then this is a very positive captivity. And the essence of the word usra is that the assumption here is that people are attracted to each other by the goodness that they share with each other. This is what the family is supposed to be attractive. So you are captive, but not against your will, but we turn it into a negative captivity when everybody hates everybody and when everybody says, I'm only here for the kids. Were it not for the kids, I would have left. That becomes negative captivity and not the intended positive usra, as it's called in Islamic literature. The second right after fit parents is a good environment. What constitutes a good environment? Peaceful home, decent and moral neighborhood, decent school, access to mosque and good Muslims to make friends and pick good habits, and family values and the educational system, library at home with books, audio and video, CDs and everything. These are resources that are vital for the kids, because if those are not there, they are picking from everybody else but you. Then you have minimum or no TV. If you want to raise Muslim kids, you don't want somebody else telling them how to think, how to feel, how to laugh, and when to cry. You want them to be your children, not the children of the TV. And the more they spend of time with the TV, the more they become the TV children, much more than your own. So you have to see what it is that you want them to be exposed to on the TV, because sometimes we let the kids watch because it's a children program. They are making a contest. It's fun. They are laughing. They are gaining information, but you don't know what the content says. And you have to be aware that behind every message there is also a hidden message. Okay. Minimum or no TV, extended family, or else community support. In our situation here, many of us do not have their extended families. So we have to be the families of each other. Those of us who embrace Islam leave behind all of their extended family. They may be living as neighbors, but they can't have their kids, you know, mingle with the rest of the extended family. They have to have the rest of the community as their own substitute extended families. Otherwise their kids get lost, and we have to pay attention to this. Then after birth, the right to have the adhan and the iqamah. What does the adhan do? What does the iqamah do? Do children come up from the cradle to pray? Because the adhan is intended to call people to pray, right? What does it do in this case? Let me take you back to the Surah Al-A'raf, the verse that we recited in the beginning. The adhan here comes to spark and inspire the seed of faith that was implanted in the child before even his parents' creation. Allah said that He implanted that seed, right? The adhan ignites that seed. And in many cases, I have seen children, once you make the adhan, their whole mood changes. If you have this experience, you can tell about the same thing. Why do you make the adhan in the right ear and the iqam in the left ear? This is something I could not figure out, but I know that the word Allah has power of its own, and it works into the soul and the spirit in a mysterious way nobody can explain. And that's why the child, despite the fact he is not called to pray at the time, but the call of prayer reminds him of who is central in his life. From the beginning of his creation, he receives the word Allah, and with it Allahu Akbar, which means he is coming to the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Love and nurturing, very important, that you exercise love and let your children know that you love them, not by the words. Words are important, but also by the positive relationship you have. Good name and a nickname. The Prophet ﷺ used to give nicknames to kids and used to change names of even adults whose parents gave them bad names at young age. We have in Egypt people calling their kids what? El-Jahsh. Very bad names. And I'm sure that bad names are in abundance everywhere, but just I remember this one. So if your child doesn't get a good, what is a good name? What's the difference between a good name and a bad name? A good name is a name that reflects positive identity. Okay, positive expectations. Like you name your child after a companion or after a name of a prophet that gives them a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. You name them a non-Muslim name, like an English British name or things of this sort. You also are giving them loyalty and allegiance to the Smith family, to this family, instead of a Muslim identity. So names do have meanings in most cases, and they reflect identity as well. The aqiqah is very important. It's a sunnah from the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, and he didn't like the name. The word aqiqah came from the Abrahamic tradition, where the Arabs not only would slaughter a sheep or something when the child is born, but they will invite people to celebrate. It serves in several ways. One is the recognition of the community as to whose child is this. So it links lineage, it makes known in the community, this family has a daughter, this family got a son, so everybody knows. So it helps establish genealogy and connection and the honor of the child and the family connection. It also helps in a different way. Arabs used to believe that if I slaughter something when my child is born and give it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a gift for my friends and family and everybody else, then there is a good likelihood that my child will be as obedient to me as Ismail was to his father. Okay? Which means it is a disobedience repeller. That's what the name is, aqiqah. It is a disobedience repeller. It repels against and defends against disobedience. The Prophet didn't like the name, but left it as is because of the negative reflection of changing it. And the Arabs used to use what is called asma'ul addad. They use the name, but they mean the opposite. So the aqiqah is supposed to bring obedience, not disobedience. Anyway, circumcision, briefly said, it is mandatory for the boys, only recommended for the girls as needed. And as needed, a gynecologist can tell you how this would work. Provisions and health care is also part of the rights of the children, that they eat from halal sources, of course, and they eat moderately and appropriately and as needed. We focus very much on food, and we'll talk about this in the next presentation as part of the satisfaction scheme that we work with children. If they cry, give them food. If they scream for anything, give them food. If they do something good, give them food. As if food is the only reward in the world. So we have to be moderate and balanced on this. Early childhood care, they have the right to playing, and they have the right for basic training, protection, physical and other harm, and against other harm. Talking. Children have the right to talk. In case you did not recognize this one. The reason I say this is because many of us, we are too busy, too occupied with our adult life, that when the children come to talk, it seems like intrusion into our adult life. Oh, sit down, don't talk, don't interfere. While they are learning as they talk to us, as they interrupt us, they are learning. Okay? I'm not encouraging that they, be taught to be interruptive, but just you have to accept them as part and parcel of your life. We know that the Prophet ﷺ listened to kids, and it is said that a young girl that used to be even a servant or a slave would pick the Prophet ﷺ by the hand, and he would walk with her distances, not asking where is she taking him. This is how much humble ﷺ was. And then after a long distance, he would say, where are we going? I want to show you something. Reading for the kids, not only the Quran, but to expand their horizons for all and into all areas, to role model, to give them the example in you, in your lifestyle, in your commitment, in your discipline, in your organization, in your management of your time and resources. Constant guidance, that you always on top of their needs. You always know what kind of guidance they need. You know if they are good in school, they are not. You know if they are good making friends, if they are good in social skills. You know what their needs are. And then discipline. Finally, education, where you need to nurture them to acquire the appropriate knowledge, skills and attitudes, to guide them discreetly, directly and indirectly as needed. Social training, personal relationship and personal development. Business training, you have to train your children how to make money, how to manage money, how to manage bank accounts, how to make decisions related to money, because money is what we need the most as a community. And most of us adults were raised lacking the skills how to earn good money, and how to put effort to make money, and how to manage money as we get it, and how to balance and save. By the way, in every verse in the Quran that we are instructed to spend, Allah never said spend what we have given you. He always says spend from what we have given you. أنفقوا مما, which is an instruction to savings, something lost in our community. So we have to balance this also. Objection and correction, they have the right to object. They have the right to say no. Because if they can't say no to you, they will never be able to say no to their friends and to anybody else. But what you need to do is to teach them when and how to express their disagreement. This is where education is needed. And finally, they have the right to be wrong. And the right to be wrong is entrenched in the nature of the child, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمُ, in the hadith the Prophet says, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمُ عَنْ ثَلَاث, the pen doesn't write the works of 3 categories of people, one of which is children until they grow up and mature. Why? Some of us say because they don't have knowledge. That's true. But much more important is because they don't have the will to control and discipline themselves to only do the right thing. Okay? This is the end of this one. Jazakumullah khair.
We extended it a little bit over time, inshallah. So with
questions but no answers.
Yeah. So if there are any questions, we can do them now or we can do them later, inshallah. Okay, if there are no questions, we'll go for the tea break then. Very good.
If you talk about teenagers who are stubborn, those are not easy guys to break their will. They are not easy. They have longer, inclination to patience, and they will wait and see what happens. They will pull all the strings and they will do all the tricks in the world to get you to cave in. So older, teenage, stubborn boys or girls, they need a totally different methods of dealing with them. Number one, you have to level with them. You have to come down and see where they are coming from. Okay, which is empathy. You say, I understand why you don't want to do what I'm telling you to do. But do you understand why I'm asking you to do it? Oh, I know. No, I want you to tell me. I will tell you where you're coming from. This is where I think you're coming from. A, B, C. Is that true? Yes. Now you tell me, where do you think I am coming from? Because that empathy creates some level of understanding, reasoning, rationalization, and that brings a bridge between the parent and the child, because teenagers are different. We'll talk about teenagers in a few minutes, but just they are different. So stubbornness with teenagers cannot be addressed the same way you deal with young children. Does this answer some of your questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sister.
In the beginning of the lecture you said about they have right of waking them up for further, okay?
Yes.
What age are we talking about? Like 7 is the time they have to start praying, okay? Okay? But waking up for Fajr is hard for little kids. So do we have to start from 7 or we're talking about later on age?
I want to take your last part first. Waking up for Fajr is difficult. Is it really difficult? Let me ask you this. If your child goes to school that is 1 hour away and the school starts at 7:30, right? And the bus comes at 6:30 to pick the child. When do you wake up your child?
It's different for us. Our kids start at 8:30, so...
No, I'm saying as a matter of reality. What do you do as a parent?
I have to wake him up with them.
Okay.
Half an hour.
And he will get the kick of it and he will develop the habit to wake up at the time you expect, right? What will you do? You will put them to sleep early, right? You will make sure that they took their dinner and they rested enough time to wake up at 6 or maybe even 5:30. That's about the Fajr time. So I just wanted to address the issue of assuming that waking up for Fajr is difficult. It's not difficult. It's a matter of habit and customs. Number two, the age. I believe that kids do normally come to join their parents in prayer by the age of 3 or even maybe younger. They come and try to do what you're doing and so on and so forth. What you may need to do is to nurture this in them. Oh, thank you that you came and stuff. You know, did you pray? Now you may want to do tasbih and teach them some words. Now say alhamdulillah that Allah made you pray and stuff. You grow older and stuff. Then by the time they become 5, they are more conscientious of what prayer is more or less like. But they are not as disciplined as you wish they are. So what you need to do is to try to show them the etiquette of the environment around prayer. Not necessarily to commit to a total discipline, but to just be a little bit quiet, a little bit, disciplined. I can tell you stories, but I don't want to waste your time, of even non-Muslim kids who come to the mosque. I saw this one. She was about 6 years old, walking with her mom into the Islamic center on her toes, literally on her toes. And I received them, I greeted them, and I asked her name and stuff. I introduced myself. And I said, how can I help you? I guided them where they want. But I asked the little young one, why are you walking on your toes? And she whispered to me. She said, Mom said, this is a spiritual place that kids cannot be, running and screaming and walking as they do in other places. So she made a choice to walk on her toes to reflect her respect for the place. Look at this and compare this with the kids of the Muslims who come and they don't have any kind of play the whole week and they run wild in the mosque. I don't know if this is true here as it is in our place. But parents say, honey, you don't do this, you don't break this, you don't do this at home. We're going to the mosque and you'll have your friends. So the mosque is the prayer place or the playing place. It depends who's pronouncing it. Kids don't have, the ability to say the R, so they say it L. So what I'm saying is, get them used to the discipline and the etiquette of prayer at young age. Then ask them when they are 6 and 7, do you want me to wake you to pray Fajr with us? If they say yes, now you have to sleep a little bit earlier, right? So that you can wake up. And then you wake them up when you feel they are really comfortable. And you let them miss it and ask you for it some other day. So they say, you didn't wake me up, right? And then when they grow a little bit older, like 8 and 9, you give them their own alarm in their own room and ask them, do you want me to set the alarm for you so that you can wake up? Then by the age of 10, you ask them, if you wake me up, then I will give you this and this. You encourage them to take responsibility of their own, timing. So you take them through training. It is not about time, it's not about age, it's about how mature your child is. But I will take the lead of the Prophet. Between 7 and 10 is 3 long years for training. Likewise, you do the same for hijab, because I know that hijab also was coming as a question. So you do the same thing. Okay, yes. Let me take him. Alaykum salam.
In the end of your slide, you had children have the right to object to their parents.
Yes.
Can this be, is this disobedience?
Huh?
Where's the fine line between disobedience and having the right to object?
The right to object is the right to speak, but it is not the right to disobey. These are two different things. The right to object is to say, Mom, I don't want to do this now. Then it's either that mom will say, honey, you must really do it now, and that becomes an issue of obedience, or mom would say, when do you think you can do it? Then it becomes an issue for discussion. So if it is a flexible timing issue, mom and her daughter can keep discussing it. And it's a matter of training your child to say no when they feel like it, so that they get the training that they are not just submissive to any adult. Because in the school, you will have to teach her, right? That if the teacher tells you to do something that you think is wrong, you ask question, you challenge what she's saying until you are satisfied. And the teacher has a responsibility to explain to you. Otherwise, if you teach them, listen to your teacher no matter what, then you're setting them up for being taken for granted. Okay?
The issue with
the issue of?
I'll say the issue, just to point on that.
Can we join one person? Yes.
Sorry, and I'm just looking from the society that myself and my parents and grandparents came from, is that the man, or sometimes the woman, but mostly the man, leads at home, and the model that he uses at home is one of dictatorship. It's like, you don't listen to me, you're disobeying me, you're gonna get punished for it. Yeah, well, misunderstanding. I just wanted to say.
So what's the question?
Okay, the question is, now that's got nothing to do with this. Now the question is, the language used at home and the language spoken, and how you communicate with your kids.
Right. This is about modeling.
Yeah.
Kids pick from parents. So as we said, the word they pronounce the first is the word they hear the most. That's no, right? Likewise, if they see the parents when they have differences, they are screaming and shouting and yelling, the kids will do the same when they get into differences, right? If they see parents sitting down discussing differences and rationalizing with each other, kids will also pick the same habit. But they need training. Kids need training. They learn by modeling, yes. By copying, yes. But not exclusively. They also need to know the knowledge, they need to know the logic behind what they are doing, and they need to know what is the best way to even object to something that I disagree with. Because part of the biggest problems in our ummah as a whole is two things. One is we don't know how to agree, right? Right? We are very much disagreeable, and we don't know how to even disagree when we disagree. Why? Because we're not learning those skills at young age. So we grow up to struggle with each other. Whenever we have differences, somebody's screaming and yelling to force his or her point across. But kids have to learn a better way. Honey, how better you could have said what you said? Oh, I'm sorry, did I say it in a bad way? Then they come up with a better way. But how else could you do it in even a better way? Then they come up with a better way. And sometimes they come and talk to you because they are, they lost something or somebody did something to them. They come crying and screaming and looking for, compassionate empathy. Come on, honey, what happened and stuff. Cool them down, but then turn them to, and this is something I do a lot with my kids. When they have differences and stuff, I say I have one of two options. Either that you solve the dispute amongst yourself, or you appoint a judge, me or your mom. So they pick and choose. Most of the time it is mom. So but the majority of time really they go ahead and resolve the differences between themselves. Okay, this time this is what you will do, but next time you will do this. So they learn negotiation, they learn respect, they learn listening, they learn communication, in the process of guiding them in a little dispute over, for example, who does the dishes today, or who's going to do this chore or this assignment. Okay, time's up.